Independence Day is the film that blew up the White House and made the whole world cheer, but everything you know about how it got made is wrong. Did you know the studio flat out refused to cast Will Smith, and the director threatened to quit over it? Or that the entire script was written in under 4 weeks, sold in 48 hours, and put into pre-production by Monday? Today we're uncovering 16 hidden truths about Independence Day 1996, including the one word that got the Pentagon to pull its support and the alien that was covered in something you'd never expect. Number 1, the studio refused to cast Will Smith, and the director threatened to walk. Fox's position was blunt. They told Emmerich and Devlin that casting a black actor in the lead role would kill the film's foreign box office. Their exact words, as Devlin later recalled, were, "You cast a black guy in this part, you're going to kill foreign." The studio dug in, so did Emmerich. He threatened to walk away from the entire production if he wasn't allowed to cast Smith. The argument went on for weeks. Emmerich had tested Smith and Jeff Goldblum together and knew their chemistry was the engine the film needed. Fox eventually backed down. Smith got the role. Independence Day earned $817 million worldwide, one of the biggest grosses in the history of cinema. At that point, the executive who insisted no black actor could open a film internationally was, according to Devlin, no longer at the studio by the time the film came out. Number 2, the entire script was written in under 4 weeks and sold in 48 hours. Emmerich and Devlin wrote the screenplay in Mexico in a sustained burst of work. Emmerich has said the final draft took 3.5 weeks, not 3.5 months, 3.5 weeks. The script was sent to their agent on a Thursday. By Friday, studios were calling. By Monday morning, they were in pre-production. Every major studio in Hollywood put in a bid. Universal and 20th Century Fox battled hardest, and Fox won. Emmerich had negotiated final cut into his deal, which was almost unheard of for a director at his level on a $75 million film. The script that went into production was, by Emmerich's account, almost identical to what he and Devlin wrote in Mexico. He said later that not one word of it was changed. A script written in under a month, sold in less than a weekend, became the highest-grossing film of 1996. Number 3, the idea came from a single question at a press conference. Emmerich and Devlin were in Europe promoting Stargate in 1994 when a reporter at a press conference asked Emmerich directly, "Do you believe in aliens?" Emmerich said no. Then he said, well, either to the reporter or to himself, accounts differ slightly. What if we woke up tomorrow and spaceships were hovering over the 30 biggest cities on Earth? He went back to his hotel and started working. That press conference question and the image it triggered in his mind became the entire foundation of one of the most commercially successful science fiction films ever made. The next morning, Devlin and Emmerich began developing the idea together. The premise that eventually became Independence Day, the ships just hovering, not attacking, and the slow realization that their intentions were catastrophic, was there from that first conversation. Emmerich has described the scene of the ships appearing over cities as the only image he needed. Everything else was built to justify that one shot. Number 4, Kevin Spacey was written as the president, and Fox killed the casting. Dean Devlin and Kevin Spacey had been friends since high school. When Devlin sat down to write the role of President Thomas Whitmore, he wrote it with Spacey in mind. The character in the original draft was conceived as a Richard Nixon-type figure, a vaguely corrupt politician who ultimately proves his worth when he gets in the jet at the end. Fox's response was direct. A studio executive told Devlin flat out that Kevin Spacey was not a movie star. The studio refused to approve the casting. Bill Pullman was brought in, and the character was rewritten to be more straightforwardly sympathetic. What had been a morally complicated president became a man audiences could unambiguously root for. Devlin later told The Hollywood Reporter that he argued the case hard and pointed out to the executive that Spacey was going to win an Oscar within the year. The executive said Spacey would never win an Oscar in his lifetime. Spacey won for The Usual Suspects the same year Independence Day opened. Number 5, the Pentagon agreed to help and then pulled out over 2 words. The U.S. military initially agreed to support the production. They were going to provide access to military bases, supply authentic costumes and equipment, and consult with the actors playing military roles to make their performances credible. It was the kind of cooperation that saves a production significant money and gives a film genuine visual authenticity. Their condition was one demand: remove all references to Area 51 from the script. In 1996, the U.S. Air Force had never officially acknowledged the existence of the facility. Area 51 was classified, and the military wasn't willing to support a film that placed it at the center of the story. Emmerich and Devlin refused to cut it. The military withdrew because they lost military cooperation. The production ended up with access to only one real working fighter jet. Every other aircraft seen in the air throughout the film was either a model or a digital composite. Number 6, the White House explosion was a one-take only practical model shot with 9 cameras. The image that defined Independence Day before a single audience member had seen the film, the White House obliterated by an alien energy beam, was not computer-generated. It was a physical model built and then destroyed in a single controlled explosion that could not be repeated. The model was built at a scale of 1/12. The effects crew, led by veteran pyrotechnician Joe Viscas-Hill, set it with precision detonators. 9 cameras were positioned to capture the shot from every angle simultaneously. 3 more cameras from the sound department were running, including one high-speed camera specifically to give the explosion the slow-motion weight that made miniatures read as massive on screen. There was no margin for error. One take, no second attempt. Star Wars sound designer Ben Burt, who was working on the film, compared shooting the White House explosion to filming a space shuttle launch. The model was built over months. It was destroyed in seconds. The footage was perfect. Number 7, the film holds the record for most miniatures ever built for a single movie because the military pulled its support and the production had to recreate virtually everything from scratch. The model-making department built an extraordinary number of physical miniatures. Independence Day set a record at the time of its release for the most miniature model work to appear in any single Hollywood film. The inventory was staggering. The White House, the Empire State Building, a 60-foot alien spaceship, versions of Los Angeles and New York City, aircraft of multiple types, alien fighters, all of the opening moonshots, including the famous footprints on the lunar surface, were miniatures built and photographed practically. The models were too large for Hollywood studio facilities. The production had to house them in the vast hangar of Howard Hughes' Spruce Goose, a cavernous structure large enough to contain the full-scale aircraft that Hughes had built and the only facility big enough to hold what Emmerich's model team was constructing. An effects team worked for months to build these meticulous replicas, knowing they were going to blow most of them up. Number 8, the alien suits were covered in KY jelly. The alien creatures and the biological beings inside the mechanical suits that the invaders wear were practical animatronic constructions to give them the wet, organic appearance that read convincingly on camera. The suits were coated in KY jelly before every shot. The lubricant gave the alien skin a glistening, membranous quality that made the creatures look genuinely biological rather than mechanical. The actor performances inside the suits were almost entirely invisible beneath the animatronics and the coating. The creatures had to look like something that had evolved in a genuinely alien environment. Not a rubber suit, not a CGI construction, but something that appeared to breathe and respond and exist. The combination of practical animatronics and the jelly coating gave the film's alien reveals a physicality that held up on screen in ways that pure CGI from the same period often didn't. The creatures that audiences reacted to most strongly in 1996 were the ones built and coated by hand in a workshop before a single frame was shot. Number 9, more than half of Goldblum's dialogue was improvised. Dean Devlin confirmed in multiple interviews that more than 50% of Jeff Goldblum's dialogue across the entire film was improvised. That figure includes some of the film's most memorable exchanges, particularly the scenes between Goldblum and Will Smith, and between Goldblum and Judd Hirsch, who played his father. Most of the dialogue between Smith and Goldblum during the sequence where they navigate the captured alien fighter into the mothership was made up on the spot. Their chemistry in those scenes, the nervous, rapid back and forth that feels like two men who genuinely don't know if they're going to survive, was largely unscripted. Emmerich encouraged the improvisation throughout the shoot. His approach was to set the scene, shoot the scripted version, and then tell the actors to do whatever felt true to them. Goldblum's particular verbal rhythm, the half-finished thoughts, the sudden certainty followed by immediate doubts, shaped the character of David Levinson in ways the screenplay alone never could have produced. Number 10, Matthew Perry was cast as a fighter pilot until friends got in the way. The role of Captain Jimmy Wilder, played in the finished film by Harry Connick Jr., was originally cast with Matthew Perry. Perry had agreed to the role and was attached to the production. Then Friends' shooting schedule made it impossible. He couldn't work around his commitments to the show. Before he dropped out entirely, Perry made one lasting contribution to the film. He added the line where Wilder says, "Hold me," and leans his head on Will Smith's shoulder during the pre-mission briefing. That moment, the joke that cuts the tension before the final battle, is a Perry addition written directly into the script before he left the production. Harry Connick Jr. stepped in and delivered the role. The "Hold Me" line he performed was Matthew Perry's that got one of the film's biggest laughs and became one of its most quoted moments. Perry never appeared in the film. His joke did. Number 11. The marketing campaign caused a panic in Spain. The American marketing campaign for Independence Day was already aggressive. A Super Bowl ad showing the White House destruction months before the film opened was enough to make the film the most anticipated release of 1996. In Spain, the campaign went further and got out of control. Fox's Spanish distributor created fake news broadcasts using footage from the film. The segments were designed to look like real news interruptions, a presenter cutting into regular programming to report what appeared to be an actual alien invasion. Every one of these supposed news flashes carried the word advertisement on screen. Hundreds of Spanish viewers called television and radio stations anyway to report what they believed was real. The Telecinco network was flooded with calls. The story made international news in September 1996. The Spanish campaign had done the same thing Orson Welles did in 1938 with his War of the Worlds radio broadcast, convinced a portion of the audience that what they were watching was real, and achieved it with a disclaimer visible the entire time. Number 12, test audiences cheered when the Area 51 title card appeared on screen. During the film's early test screening in Las Vegas, the production team was watching audience reactions closely. They had worried in the lead-up to production whether the Area 51 subplot was too niche, too dependent on a specific American cultural mythology to land with a general audience. When the on-screen title card for Area 51 appeared, the test screening audience in Las Vegas erupted. They cheered. Not politely, they cheered the way audiences cheer at a sports moment. The level of cultural saturation that Area 51 had achieved by 1996 meant that audiences recognized it instantly and responded to its appearance as a kind of confirmation that the film was playing in a real and recognizable world. The moment ended any internal debate about the subplot's place in the film. The Pentagon's objection and the production's refusal to cut it had been vindicated before the film even opened. Area 51 stayed. The audience told them it was the right call. Number 13, the president's speech changed the title of the film. Emmerich and Devlin had wanted to call the film Independence Day from the start. The rights to that title were held by Warner Brothers. Fox's alternative title suggestions included Invasion, Sky on Fire, Doomsday, and The End of the World. None of them were acceptable to the filmmakers. The solution came from inside the screenplay itself. Bill Pullman's climactic speech, the one delivered to the assembled fighter pilots before the final battle, ends with the line, Cucker, "Today we celebrate our Independence Day." The line was written specifically so that the title of the film could be earned within the story rather than just imposed on it from outside. With that line in the script, the production had a clear argument for why the title mattered and what it was doing. Fox took the case to Warner Brothers and secured the rights. The title that Emmerich and Devlin had wanted from the beginning was saved by writing it into the most memorable speech in the film. The ending of the speech justified the name of the movie. Number 14, The film's sets were recycled from 3 other movies. The production's budget, while large, was managed carefully. Several key interior sets were not built from scratch. The White House interior scenes were filmed on sets built for and previously used in Nixon and the American President, both released in 1995. The familiar geometry of the presidential spaces had already been constructed for those productions. The submarine scene early in the film came from Crimson Tide, released the previous year. The stealth bomber, visible in several sequences, was the same physical prop used in Broken Arrow, also from 1995. The recycling was practical and invisible to audiences. None of the sets or props required modifications significant enough to break the illusion. A film about the end of the world was quietly assembled in part from the furniture of other people's films, a testament to how efficiently the production team worked within the constraints they had and how little audiences notice the scaffolding when everything around it is on fire. Number 15. A test helicopter with movie lights caused a UFO panic over Orange County. During production, the effects team was testing a helicopter fitted with the kind of lighting rig needed for aerial sequences. The helicopter went up over Orange County. Nobody warned anyone it was coming. The production had not filed the necessary advance notifications with local authorities about what was happening in the sky. The lights on the helicopter, moving in an unusual pattern at night at altitude, looked like nothing any of the witnesses had seen before. 150 people called local police to report a UFO. Emmerich and Devlin discussed the incident on the DVD commentary, passing the story back and forth. The helicopter had been flying without any announcement over a populated area, and the result was a brief but genuine panic. A film about an alien invasion accidentally created the most convincing UFO report Orange County had seen in years. Before it had released a single frame of footage, number 16, the ending was reshot after a test screening response forced a last-minute change. The film that first test audiences saw had a different ending. The original cut's conclusion did not play the way Emmerich and Devlin needed it to. Audience response made it clear that something was wrong with how the film was closing. The emotional payoff wasn't landing at the scale the preceding 2 hours had promised. The production went back and reshot the ending sequence. The specific nature of what changed in the final battle has not been fully detailed by the filmmakers in any single interview, but the result was a significantly different version of the climax from what the test audience had seen, what audiences ultimately watched in theaters, and the coordinated global counterattack, Randy Quaid's sacrifice, the final speech, the debris falling over the desert, was a rebuilt ending constructed after the original version failed. The film that made $817 million worldwide, that launched Will Smith as the biggest action star on the planet, that defined what a summer blockbuster looked and felt like for the rest of the decade, closed with an ending that only existed because the first version didn't work. Independence Day asked one question and answered it with a fireball. What would it actually take to make the whole world fight together? 30 years later, nobody's topped it. What's your favorite moment? The speech, the White House, or something else entirely? Drop it in the comments, and if this one hit, subscribe. There's plenty more buried in the blockbusters you thought you knew everything about.